From Galileo's Dialogues Concerning Two New Sciences, 1638. Salviati. Once more, Simplicio is here on time, so let us without delay take up the question of motion. The text of our author, Galileo, is as follows. The motion of projectiles. In the preceding pages we have discussed the properties of uniform motion, and of motion naturally accelerated along planes of all inclinations. I now propose to set forth those properties which belong to a body whose motion is compounded of two other motions, namely, one uniform and one naturally accelerated. These properties, well worth knowing, I propose to demonstrate in a rigid manner. This is the kind of motion seen in a moving projectile. Its origin I conceive to be as follows. Imagine any particle projected along a horizontal plane without friction. Then we know, from what has been more fully explained in the preceding pages, that this particle will move along this same plane with a motion which is uniform and perpetual, provided the plane has no limits. But if the plane is limited and elevated, then the moving particle, which we imagine to be a heavy one, will, on passing over the edge of the plane, acquire, in addition to its previous uniform and perpetual motion, a downward propensity due to its own weight, so that the resulting motion, which I call projection, is compounded of one which is uniform and horizontal, and of another which is vertical and naturally accelerated. We now proceed to demonstrate some of its properties, the first of which is as follows. Theorem 1, Proposition 1. A projectile which is carried by a uniform horizontal motion compounded with a naturally accelerated vertical motion describes a path which is a semi-parabola. Sagredo. Here, Salviati, it will be necessary to stop a little while for my sake, and I believe also for the benefit of Simplicio, for it so happens that I have not gone very far in my study of Apollonius, and am merely aware of the fact that he treats of the parabola and other conic sections, without an understanding of which I hardly think one will be able to follow the proof of other propositions depending upon them. Since even in this first beautiful theorem the author finds it necessary to prove that the path of a projectile is a parabola, and since, as I imagine, we shall have to deal with only this kind of curves, it will be absolutely necessary to have a thorough acquaintance, if not with all the properties which Apollonius has demonstrated for these figures, at least with those which are needed for the present treatment.